idea for all this really came from a dream?
Yes, it did.
Good evening and welcome to NOX MENTE. Tonight's guest is not Leo Zagami. It's Keats Ross. He's the host of the Pragmagick podcast. I posted a show he did last week with Nish on our channel. Hopefully everyone got to listen to that. It's kind of a swap now, a swap cast. Keats, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, guys. I'll be your Leo Zagami if you want me to be.
Yeah, really appreciate you taking the initiative there and backing up.
Oh man,
Crazy shit.
that was that was a good hustle. I'll tell you that much.
What is so great is that Keats and I were talking because we've become friends behind the scenes or texting back and forth, and
texting,
and it was like, has Jerry booked you yet? Because I know you guys had talked about it, and so presto, Keats is on.
Shazam!
Right.
I will be done.
Our will somehow we just I think it was our power, Keats, that pushed Leo to the side.
You know, yeah, the power of Discord, the scrying of Discord.
Right. Well, after my
Black
appearance
Mirror
on your
scrying.
show,
Yeah, exactly.
We have some power apparently.
Hey, our conversation was, it was beautiful. I absolutely adored it. The reception I've been getting about it is a lot less adversarial than I think we both thought it might be.
Yeah,
and
good.
I've gotten nothing but compliments, and people love you, Nish. You're a star.
I have gotten all good feedback, but it's from people that love me and I love in return. So, but I did get, as I posted on Twitter, I got blocked by a couple people, which is hilarious.
I saw that, and like you shared that with me. I'm not too versed in this.
I'm just going to go make a sandwich while you guys talk.
There you go.
Sorry, Jerry. I think
we'll get to you too, I'm sure. No, but just to touch on that, I'm not too familiar with this whole shadow blocking, Twitter passive aggressive bullshit, honestly. And you were sharing that with me, and I was like, "Who is this person?" Oh, it's a sock account.
Right. It's another account with a faceless person.
Well, I texted, or not texted, messaged Jerry after we talked and was like, "Hey, you're next, motherfucker." And then I had to like give a little caveat, like, I didn't mean that threatening. Just, I'd like to have you on my show.
Leaving me all with a semi and shit.
Yeah. Right. And Jerry, if anyone can get people butt sore, Jerry can do it.
Oh, yeah.
Jerry,
just don't talk about space.
Yeah.
Why?
I'm just kidding.
No, it's a joke, Jerry.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
We talked to it just came out today. We talked to Marty Leeds last night on Cruising with Steak.
Oh shit, really?
Yeah, it was great.
Can't wait for this.
It's out. It came out today. It's episode. Check this out. Turned out to be episode 123.
Oh my god! Suzanne sent me the link, so I'm stoked. Yeah, I'm definitely stoked.
I'll take that cosmic trigger and run with it.
We talked about.
Yeah. No, I mean I enjoy it. It's just funny. It seems always to be like such a, a divisive thing.
Oh, it triggers people. I love it.
Yeah.
It triggers people.
Well, it just seems like about everything does these days.
Yeah.
Seriously, one way or another. People that think they do not get triggered and then somehow
get triggered.
Yeah.
It's a precarious place to be. I really wonder, just from my bouts with, trauma and all this shit, and there's PTSD within it. I wonder how much of it is actually valid and how much of it isn't. And I'm not the soothsayer to say either way. You know what I mean? So it's just such a precarious place to be when people get upset. A lot of me is just like, oh, fuck off. Who cares? And then the other part of me is like, oh man, I didn't want it bad.
Just, go down the street and, or whatever, whoever's talking about, like, say, Trump, like he's bad, blah, 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 blah. Or if you encounter Orange Man bad talk, just counter it with, he's not that bad, and see what kind of reaction you get.
If you don't get Portland, you get killed out here.
Cheeto hombre malo.
Naranja. Raka.
Yeah, there you
Even
go.
me, when I say I'm not,
That's the word for orange.
It is
I'm
a word
not
for orange.
batting
I
on
know.
either side, people get triggered by that. Oh, if you're not batting on either side, then you shouldn't have an opinion.
Right. Well, you're a Nazi.
Oh my God. So this comes up a lot with, what I've been talking about, especially within a culture, this, the term fence sitting, just because, there's
Yes.
an agnosticism with what your views are or your bipolicy. It's not about fucking right or left. It's not about black and white. There's no dichotomy. There's a huge gray, and people hate that.
Yes. I know. It's like you're invalid if you're observing. If you're in observance, you're somehow invalid.
Yeah, I mean it's invalidating too because
I know. Well, Keats, you know me. Whatever.
right. Flip the hair,
Yeah,
flip the
yeah.
finger.
That's right. And swish my big ass down the street. So on that note, let's jump into some Nox Mente. So here's our little thing. Keats is back this week, and so he's had a wonderful whiskey, so we have him all relaxed, and this is going to be good.
Best therapy session I think I could ever think of.
Absolutely. Let's jump right in. So give us the background, Keats. What inspired you as far back as you can recall? What things stick out in pop culture? Of course, dreams. This whole show is really about dreams, but pop culture and the foundational rocks that kind of built the house you live in now, metaphorically.
Yeah, well, forgive me if I meander. That's a really big question because I had the pleasure and the displeasure. I'm like from a contradictory nature where I was from an already broken home. Like my parents divorced when I was 3. They moved one to California, one to Arizona, and I stayed with my mother in Arizona, which was very uptight, very Catholic, um, very brutal, and it was in the barrios of New Mexico and Arizona where I was there. And I'd visit my father, and he lived on a compound with Marilyn Ferguson, who wrote The Aquarian Conspiracy, um, interviewed, Robert Anton Wilson. I actually posted that interview in Pragmagick. And I bounced on Timothy Leary's knee, So like there's this huge contradiction about my life. And I think it's always been about finding that gentle medium between. So my earliest memories, I remember like very vividly asking my father what the soul was. I think I was like 5 years old. I just take a breath. My back is killing me. But he said to me, he equated it to driving a vehicle, right? He called the body a vehicle, and it just kind of jumps passengers. And that just set me off. And then I took that information and I called my Orthodox priest uncle on my mother's side and asked him what God was. And he told me God was whatever made you feel safe, which I thought was so fucking profound, even as a kid, after, the fire and brimstone of Catholic Church and whatnot. Like, just this kind of, I don't know, this very intrinsic kind of idea about what spirituality is. And so it really got me reeling in this contradictory that there isn't such a contradiction, that, these two very disparate ideas about individuality, about collectivism, about religiosity, about spiritual paths, they all share some very unique traits. And I think to me, that was always the most fascinating part as a kid, because I went on to live with my father in a Jewish household. So my childhood itself was a contradiction between Catholicism and Judaism. And so it just kind of, it's always instilled in me this agnosticism, this bewilderment with certainty, I think that's kind of the basis of where I'm from.
I love this backstory, and I knew some of it, and I find it and knowing you in person and having spent a lot of time talking and interacting with you, I see how this has created who you are today, which is, landed you, as I've told you, in this spot of favorite people for me. There is something about that pressure coming from both sides that created something new and very conscious. There's something about you also that comes in very present when one's in your presence. So yeah, that's all that's so great. So when we're still talking about young Keats, did you watch anything that was anything on TV interesting to you? Books, pop culture
Oh
stuff?
God, yeah, yeah, absolutely. In a funny anecdotal way, young Keats would have been young Travis. That's my first name, but I took Keats because that's my middle name. That's my mother's maiden, and then so Keats Ross is my father's surname. So to me, that was like the perfect mix
Yeah, it's great. It
of that.
sounds great.
But Travis that would have been young Travis, and it would have been young Travis in the Southwest, which everybody's creepy uncle is named Travis. So
People named
You know.
Travis tend to get abducted a lot.
yeah, fire in the sky. But as far as like I was a latchkey kid. I was raised by television and pulp culture. I would steal from the local pawn shop records and stuff when I was a kid, read the liner notes, search out the bands of the records that I stole that they thanked or liked. It was a very alienated thing when it came to my identity as uh, an artist aesthetically or whatever. Forgive me if I say a lot. That's a problem. But I was raised by television. I had a firm love for film, especially at joining all the artistic mediums, storytelling, visually, score. Film was a huge thing for me, and still is as a kid. And so, but I was also stealing books from the local book fair, and they were all paranormal or, um, scary stories to tell in the dark. Um, they were all this very like folkloric based interest in just mythology and storytelling. And that's what really got me when I was a kid.
Were you superstitious? So you mentioned the
So, yeah.
agnostic stuff, and which makes total sense with the two households you were coming in between, bouncing between.
Right.
But did you find your own personal superstitions creeping in along the way?
It's funny. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I was really present for, between, a Jewish household and a Catholic household was this kind of unity in these, what would otherwise be concerned as, kind of, uh, rudimentary kind of superstitions, right? No hats on beds, no walking under stairs, black cats, that sort of thing. But I always had this inkling that it was the adverse, like that was the key. It's white cats you should be afraid of. Fucking walk under every stair you see, So I think that's what bred that into me, was sharing those two different, uh, very religious aspects and kind of breaking them down to do the adverse because I could see the middle. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, total sense to me. What is the hats on the bed thing? I'm not familiar with it.
I brought that up because that's an old drugstore cowboy thing.
Damn,
Oh,
Gus
yeah.
Van Sant. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
Matt Dillon's phobia.
And that's a lot of it too. My superstitions came from film a lot of the time.
Yes,
when I was a kid. Yeah.
That's perfect. Did
Yeah.
you? Okay, so in this little time slot or time bubble that's pushing away from us of young Travis, give us some names of things you watched. So like cartoons or that kind of stuff that were on the regular?
Sure. So I have been and always have been huge comic book fan. And I remember on Marilyn Ferguson's compound when I was visiting my father, Pat Perrin and Wim Coleman were these two uh, metaphysical anthropologists. I didn't know that at the time, but they knew my love of, superheroes and stuff when I was super little. And they took me to the grocery store and they said, "Give me all of your favorite comic books and put them in a pile and tell me why." And it really came down, that's like when I realized that they were looking for this threadbare of, this new American mythology or this, and that's really what it came from. 'Cause I was just in love with myth and story. And so comic books was always a huge part. Of course, like I said, film and music to a degree. There's a huge, huge part of me that is hard to separate the artist from the artistry when it comes to music, because I love just the folklore and the idea of these living things creating this stuff. So I was always very into biographies and documentaries about artists and filmmakers and musicians. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and that all shows now too. And of course, you're a wonderful musician, which I hope to work with personally. So, all right, in this period, what was your dream life like?
so yeah, my dream life. So this, I've never really spoken about this publicly, but I really had kind of two settings, which now talking with you guys, I understand that's probably intrinsic to the contradictory thing, where I had for a long time I couldn't dream of faces. Like I couldn't see faces in dreams. I would just kind of intrinsically know who I was dealing with or the amalgamation of who I was dealing with, but it was never personable. If that makes sense. It was never like you did this in my dream. It was always like this facsimile, to use your word, in my dream did this, you know? And
Or
so I
or the
always had this detachment from it bleeding into the real life. It wasn't until I was a lot older that I realized, what that might mean, if anything. And then the other avenue was I had this reoccurring dream from I think like 4 to 7, where, oh man, this one, it still haunts me. And it's not even particularly interesting, but I knew I was in some sort of safari-esque type, jungle expedition thing. And I knew that because, I was wearing the silly hat and the beige clothes, and there was this huge long shrub. And I was so interested to find the end of that shrub. So I started walking, and then I heard some sounds on the other side, and I could see orange on the other side. Just made me so excited to see what was at the end of this shrub. And once I got to the end of the shrub, the giant tiger fucking mauls me, and I'd wake up every time. And this was like an insane reoccurring dream, and it was usually uh, when I was in Arizona or, with my mother.
That's interesting that it was usually when you were with your mother.
Yeah.
Did you so on that note, did you have a preference of who you lived with at the time?
No. My mother was my best friend when I was very little. She's like the most honest representation of what I had as family, because my father was out doing his own thing. I never saw them in the same place until I was like 14. Um, but I watched her interests sway. She was young. They were both young when they had me. So I kind of watched her change into something that I didn't necessarily agree with, or we just didn't have the same intention with life, if that makes sense. So I kind of lost her after a while. We're okay now, but very minimal, I would say. But my father was always I was always so interested. If you can imagine, like spending a couple of weeks, a couple of times a year, if even, in this amazing compound with all these brilliant thinkers, and I'm listening to jams, people playing music. Uh, I didn't know it at the time how important some of these people were, but I could feel it, and it was so inviting and enthralling. And then I go back to the desert, and and watch this kind of deterioration of a homestead. And so, yeah, what was the question?
Yeah, well, you actually answered. You kind of actually roundabout answered it, and it's just more similar. It's just strange, weird similarities between us. I agree, and your dad's setup sounds fascinating, and of
He's a
course,
fascinating dude. He still
yeah,
is. Yeah.
yeah, he does. That sounds like a great experience, and I certainly relate with the latchkey thing too. It was so funny for you to say that because I haven't heard it. I've said it once, but it just feels so 70s.
Right. Yeah. Well, it was very very literal. My mother and my
Yeah.
stepfather at the time both had to work. I had to take care of my little sister. I had to walk her home from school. You know.
So, well, that gets me to the next question. Are you the only sibling?
So I have a sibling on my mother's side, which is my sister, who I spent most of my time with. And then my father's side, I have a younger brother and another younger brother. So I'm the oldest of all of them, but I'm still kind of alien, I think, to
Yeah.
both families. That makes sense.
Yeah. It does make sense. And the reason why I ask all these questions at the beginning is, as people who follow this blog know, is just to get that foundation for the people. That a lot of times, people don't know these things, these small details. And then as we move forward and, deeper into dreams, this is the rooting ground. This is where the symbols come from. And so it's important information for those that are willing to share. So I appreciate it.
Oh yeah.
Uh, and okay, so you had this dream. You already had this reoccurring one with the tiger, which is wild and interesting that it was mostly with your mother.
Yeah. And I don't know if it relates, but I'm the year of the tiger. I don't
Ooh,
know if that
another
relates, but
little
it's a
synchro.
coincidence.
The
Yeah,
year
exactly.
of the tiger.
There you go.
Jerry, we need a synchro bell. Like James Cruz had.
I have one in the garage somewhere, like a real desk bell. Ding.
We need one, Jerry.
I gotta find. I'll look for
Funny.
it.
Yeah, I mean, in this line of work, it's like how are you not a conductor of coincidence sometimes?
I know we
Ding,
totally need it.
ding, ding.
The if you want to call them synchros or whatever, this week and the last week and a half have just been off the chart.
Yeah. Yep. Look at we all yabbed there. I bet
Yeah.
people in the chat too.
It's cosmic rays.
What's been going on with you, Jerry?
Nothing. Just like last week's show, we had people would ask a question in chat, and Nish would just ask a question.
Yeah.
That kind of shit.
I did that with Suzanne today too, where
She
she
told
brought
me,
that up
yeah.
with the chat.
Mhm.
This is the real deal. I don't look at the chat. So
And then last week we were doing a Zoom, just the not a live stream or anything. We were just hanging out, and we're like, where has this one guy been? We haven't seen him in a while, and boom, he shows up in Discord.
Yeah, totally.
yes.
Thought him into existence.
Exactly. And where's James? James joins the Zoom. Like, holy fuck.
Well, this tonight too, with like, when are you booked?
Well, I almost DM'd him, but it was so short notice I decided not to.
And I was already on the case.
Yeah. No, I appreciate the invite. I honestly
Okay,
talk
so
about synchro. Like
Yeah,
this
it's-
past week has just been,
Yeah.
I mean, fucking insane.
well, speaking of that, Keats, how have you, so just kind of skipping forward a lot, and we'll wind back, but with all these synchros and with you moving and then hurting your back and all this, has any of this shown up in your dreams?
Oh yeah, a little bit. I've had some stress dreams since, but I was kind of on cloud 9. I think that's when they knock you down, right? I was before all this shit happened. Like when my back went out, I was literally loading amps to go play a farewell show here in Portland, and got locked up and was in the worst pain I've ever felt. And like we couldn't go to the show, we couldn't do this thing, so we had to text everybody like, "Hey, we're not showing up." Like Keats is on the floor, like screaming in pain because something bad happened, you know. And we were supposed to, after this show, you know, this has been building up for a month or so. We were supposed to move to Colorado. So it's been a month of moving and boxing and packing and clearing out storage spaces, clearing out rehearsal spaces, moving amps, blah blah blah. And just that last amp into that van knocked me out. I was done. But the funny synchro thing about that is that this show I had set up for my good friend's jail weddings, Gabriel Hart. I've had him on the podcast a couple of times. Great, great musician, great writer. He, you know, we were having hurdle after hurdle. It was almost like something didn't want for this show to go on. And I think it was me. I think I was the, like, against all odds, we got this show after 2 cancellations, after like 2 overbookings. So not our fault. And then the last minute, something took me out. And it was like, okay, maybe the whole point was that I shouldn't be playing this show. You know? So, yeah, that was my synchronistic week with that.
Yeah, that's enough. I follow them now. Like they back in the day before I was calling things synchronistic, I was like 17, and my cousin was 21, and he had this series of events that led to his death. And now I see them, of course, as synchronistic universe. You know, he had like one accident.
Oh, hello?
She'll be back.
Well, yeah, what she was talking about reminds me of the doppelganger idea.
And then something else, and then on his hello,
Yeah, your internet's gone.
did I go dead?
Oh yeah.
Right when
Am
you
I
were
back?
talking about death. Synchronistic.
Lee.
Where did it drop me?
I don't know.
You were talking about your cousin, who had a lot of synchronistic events.
Okay, yeah. And so it was just one after another. Like he broke his leg, then he scalped himself on a fence, literally scalped himself.
Oh, God.
And then like another one, and then he died. You know, it was like this lead up, and now I recognize all this as synchronicities that you should pay attention to.
Right.
And you know, and ironically, in the first, I saw him. I knew he was dead. He came to me before I knew he was dead. So he must have just passed, because the news got around very fast, and my mama called me shortly, and it was this cage coming out of the ground, like iron bars, like an old school Texas jail cage, all iron all the way around. And in it was this beaming, like almost, and you know, you would think, I think New Agers would think, you know, or heavy Christians, like this was an angel, because the light was just beaming through all the bars, and it was like golden, beautiful light. But I saw his face in the middle of it, and it was coming up like an elevator out of the ground. And when I saw his face, I knew, you know, at 17, I was just like, oh, wow, that's John, and John is dead. And half an hour later, I get the phone call, you know. So it was like, but the idea that synchronistically, I should have seen that for 6 months coming. Now I would say to a friend or someone, maybe you should step back and look at what's going on. And, you know, possibly these incidents are getting worse. And I think that they're warning signs to people, you know, like that. And so the fact that you had this kind of set of synchronicities is like, you know, maybe the show wasn't supposed to happen.
Yeah, and you know, hindsight is, you know, whatever. I'm not gonna do the cliche, but you know what I mean. Like it's
It's
Yeah.
easy to like put
Hindsight
the
is next year.
there you go.
Yeah.
That's forward thinking.
But that is forward. Hey, that's like pre-program. So, but I love how we've come to see things like that, especially collectively. That's now in the collective. More people think like
Right.
are starting to put these occurrences together, and even the term synchronicity, which has well been around a long time. Jung really brought that in. Wait,
Yeah, that's who I always
before
think of.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of his baby, but it's one. Can't remember that.
You just put a name to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to you. And so you said you were having stress dreams during this period, though. Do you have any examples?
Well, after it happened, it's a volatile situation, having been kind of kaput after so much momentum has increased. So I don't look at my stress streams as so much like foreboding. It's more of just kind of a status quo of where my mind is, if that makes sense. And like I had a dream last night where I was in the middle of this Kentucky Derby, and I was standing in the middle, but I couldn't walk. And it was like just a snippet of it. But in my mind, I realized, like, I'm a big lucid dreamer. In my mind, I realized how funny it was that, like, oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah. Go on. Zoom around me. I can't move. Which one of you is going to hit me? You know? So I've always had like this ability to kind of find the humor in it if I can connect it, if I can. And a lot of times it's accidental, you know. But
That's a good example, though. And I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
yeah, I mean, and I've always dreamt there's a lot of constructs within my dreams that are completely wild, but I've always been able to discern them in certain ways, or kind of understand what my subconscious is saying at that time. Not for the benefit of anything, really, just more of like a reflection, you know.
When along the path of your life did you start lucid dreaming? Do you remember the first time?
Yes, I remember it clearly. I was living in Oakland at the time, um, and I was taking a nap, and the sun was glaring through my window, and it was also the first time I ever flew in my dream. I must have been 21, 22. And I remember being very present of like riding the waves of light that were coming through my window and following them. And I remember there was a part where, like, if I just let go, I would float into the fucking atmosphere and I'd gone in the abyss. But it was like all about this determination to focus, form, to get, to have fun with it. And it was a very like influential dream for me. This is the first and very rare flying dream I've ever had.
And so, as you were just saying, it was you're a floater.
Yeah, I will like literally just start floating, and if I don't correct my shit quickly, like I would fall into the black abyss, or was it the ninth sphere of the fucking tree of life? You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
yeah, the mother's womb in a way, like just gone. And I'm better with that now, about just letting go um with it if it happens. But I like the challenge. A lot of the times it's just this awakening within the dream. God, it sounds so corny. I say that, but like it's this, it's lucid dreaming. So you realize like this is all absurd, and this is all under my control if I want it to be.
Yeah.
And then it's about honing how to get through it. But I've never, manifested things within the dream. I've never like said, okay, now I'm gonna go here. Now I'm gonna go there. It's always been like parlaying with the subconscious as
Yeah.
to get around. It's never been like, and now, you know, insert, riches or whatever. It's never been like that.
That's like I'm working on that. That's like a big next step for me. So the lucidity comes on, and this just seems really common. And we all think we all go in with like intention. First of all, intention, I'm going to have a lucid dream. I'm going to wake up.
Right.
And I mean, I constantly find that to be the truth for myself. I get lucid, and then I kind of, even though I'm awake and aware, I get caught up in like narrative, and I end up
Me
going.
too. Like, what am I doing here? What is this?
I know, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I've definitely got control in some aspects here and there, but I'm working on it. I can't wait. And I can't remember who it was. It, but it's the architects of this. This was somebody else saying this. We've had on the architects of lucid dreaming, of the dream state itself, that are actually running the bigger show, because they get in and are able to do anything they want in that state. And then through that law of basically as above, so below, right? As within, so without, they're creating real change in our perceived outer world and the outer world of those around them. So there's something to that, which I'm exploring.
I love that. Yeah, and it almost gives an engineering quality, you know, to your subconscious. You can reconstruct those whims and wants or whatever within the dream. I feel like that's the playing field, right?
Yeah, it's like powering up in a video game, really.
Yeah, I've heard that analogy used so much. I wish I played video games more.
I know, I know. But you don't have to play them that much to
understand
the terminology. Yeah. So, okay, so with that, so you're about 22 when you started having the lucid dreams come on?
I think when I started understanding that, you know, to use another video game analogy, that I'm a single player in an open world kind of thing. But it was a sandbox thing, you know. It wasn't like I could create different escape or anything. It was always that you know, somebody thrust into a situation and then kind of finding the story or the narrative of that situation.
So while we're in here talking about lucidity, so all right, we have an idea of what goes on for you and that the stories happen, but what does it feel like, look like? Give us that tactile stuff when you realize, oh man, I'm dreaming. What is it?
So yeah, I've always equated it to like walking down, you know, those like I hate to use the word horror because it's not a horror film, but you see a lot of like a cliche in a horror film about, you know, the blinking fluorescent lights in a dark hallway, right? And it's like anytime a blinking fluorescent light 10 feet ahead of you can shift into different pathways. And so to me, it's always been like kind of learning the curriculum or whatever of those blinking lights to know when to move forward. It is like a fucking video game. Holy shit.
It really is.
And maybe, maybe that's, you know, that's the thing. Maybe that's why they're so powerful as a medium, you know? Because it's very similar in that way. But, you know, I don't know, I love to me, it's the adventure of it. I think like when I'm truly lucid dreaming, it's that I don't want to construct things, I want to react.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. Jerry and I hear that a lot. One of the things that I always notice, and still at this point, is when I get to that state of, I'm lucid, I'm awake here, I'm dreaming and I'm awake, it's always like this pinpoint. It's usually a lot of times I'm looking down or something, I'm walking or focus that's real clear and everything else is out of focus. And then therein lies my personal problem. And I've heard others say this and then others don't. And this is why these discussions are important, I think. At that point, in trying to open that little pinpoint of focus and get clarity on everything, And in that same moment of realization that I'm dreaming, oftentimes just that bit is enough to pop me out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's, I don't know, it's a
It's like winning the game,
yeah, but I've got
but not
goals.
because you want to stay in. Yeah, it's like right. I think it's like right when you figure out the algorithm or the architecture or whatever, then
Right.
it stops being a language between you and yourself in a way.
Have you ever been completely in an OBE experience? And this can include, near death experiences too.
Yes. So I was electrocuted when I was 9 years old.
I
Home
think
alone.
this is a first for Nox Mente.
Yeah. 9 years old. I don't know if it was necessarily a near death experience. All I know is that I lost time and I came to like 20 minutes later. I remember the clock because I was watching it before my parents got home. I was in the attic and I was fucking with this like radio receiver kind of thing. And I remember just complete bolted into me. And then I remember like I'm talking in the visceral plane here. I remember like waking up and freaking out that my parents were gonna find me dead. And I had lapsed 20 minutes. So it knocked me out. I don't know if it was an NDE. But the closest I've ever come, I mean not the closest I've ever come, that's a lie. I've definitely had some self-induced, harm-induced um bouts with that sort of stuff. But this is the one that was not, how do I put it? Not, it was when I was young.
Not self
Yeah.
initiated.
Not, yeah, exactly.
I got you.
And like long term, if it was like drugs or something, not like this. It was totally my fault. It was a total mistake. This one.
And did I miss, because it kind of roboted, did you have an experience though of consciousness outside of your physicality?
So yeah, I've questioned that a lot. I actually I had, so this recently there's this friend I have. She was on the show. Her name's Elizabeth Hennemer. She's an oracle, quote unquote. But what she does is she does these guided tree of life meditations. And when I first met her, she was taking me through one, and I revisited the space that I was in when I was 9. It freaked the shit out of me. And it was, I think it was like the third sphere, Sephiroth or whatever, and it was like the living things. And it was this constant growth of insect and vine and flower and just flora and fauna consistently growing over each other. And I remember that so distinctly.
That kind of sounds like DMT space.
Yeah, and I've done DMT, but I've never had something like that. But yeah, I would equate it to, from what I've heard other people's things. My DMT experiences were very kind of not boring, but very like
You didn't smoke enough.
yeah, right. I wouldn't say they were that trip. I'll put it that way. They were trip. They weren't that, you know.
You didn't have elves going, look at that, look at this, jumping
So
around your face.
so there was, the first time was, one that I stood up and there was a sea of ghost heads that I was playing like whack-a-mole that were emitting sound, and they were singing for me and they were trying to tell me something, but I had to hit them in a certain way. My God, I should play video games. I'm just now realizing.
All signs say yes.
Maybe that's why I'm not into them. It's like, no, I can get there, you know. But yeah, so yeah, there was just like this constant, this realm of just constant growth, greenery of like earth continually growing on itself. Vines, twigs, and sinew, and just, it's like that, stop motion. Or that,
Harryhausen.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. A little bit, yeah. And it was
Jesus.
like,
The Argonauts. Yeah, I know what you mean.
yeah,
Harryhausen.
yeah. And it when I hit that in that meditation, it reminded me like that's where I was when I got electrocuted.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and so that's what really got me into. I mean, very very bare bones. I'm not a Kabbalah guy at all. So don't take anything I say about what it is, but it's what really jump started, you know, my interest in it. And then I started reading about the Zimzu, about the fraction, Ein Sof, which is like everything. And for us to perceive anything, the Ein Sof had to be contracted. They call that the Zimzum, so that we can fucking understand everything. And then that's what got me deep into the states that I was reaching when I was doing my audio man stuff. And so it all kind of correlated, you know?
So pause here and give us a little bit about the audiomancy.
Yeah, so ever since I was a kid, I was joking earlier about stealing records and tapes and stuff from the pawn shop. But because I had like my mom's double cassette ghetto blaster, that I was able to record sounds and make songs without having an instrument. So I would record from the radio and I'd record these just mutant melodies, you know, just ridiculous sound, concrete kind of things. And then I would sleep with them in my ear in my little walk, and I would hit these like dizzying states of like conversing with things, talking with dreams. And I thought I was just a kid, and it was weird, like it was like imaginary friends or something, but it was like truly a sonically like induced coma, you know. And as a musician, as I grew up and I got really into creating my own samples and using analog tape and cutting up tape and spooling these like weird rhythms together, I started inducing trance like states with them and my guitar or and some drum. And so yeah, it's all just very alike, you know.
Absolutely. And this is, I don't want to trail too far into this direction, but it's, of course, this is an important factor in my life and definitely in the time art stuff I do with the music.
Right.
And where when I put hashtag trans, this is what I'm talking about. Because this is how I discovered it also early on with a dual tape. It's hilarious.
Ghetto blaster.
Baby, that's right. And I always had such an intense relationship with sound and getting into a trance state that it led me into very interesting circles of people and all that, and of course informed my art that I still do. So, but I find it plays hand in hand with stuff like the dreamscape.
Right.
And this talk of and bringing lucidity into waking life and questioning what's what. Are we dreaming now? Is that dreaming? Where do people go when they die? Where are we?
Right.
And all these kind of basic questions that I've had for a very long time. And I find that the idea of trance, especially if you can do it for yourself, like all the music I put out, I do for myself. So I listen. I make sure I can get into the trance state.
Yeah.
Or I put it forward. And then if anyone else can get there, that's great. But I'm trying to cross those boundaries myself. So I'm experimenting. And that is where these lines start to get blurry. Where are we? What is this? How can I be awake, be awake, be awake? And I'm not talking about the woke community.
Sure.
So yeah, I recognize that in you. And I had just discovered that side of your music. I think I made some crazy comment on one of your videos.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's
you'll
awesome.
have to check. You have like 3 different, YouTube channels.
I know. Oh, God, it's pain in my existence.
But there's one song you put out that just took me there immediately. It really brought me into that space. And so this leads up to my next question. As someone that understands this idea of trance and self-induced trance, which I want to also tie into deep meditation, which as somebody who's also done a lot of psychedelics in the past, ties into that state. So I see a similar thread personally.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, to me, that was always the thoroughfare, between all of those things, whether it's like, the collective unconscious, or, you know, Bell's theorem and quantum physics, or like, us and Osmond Spares, neither. This like
Yes.
underworld of like all things, all thoughts, everything kind of existing and hanging out together, I think that's like I call that, when I do that, the joke is that I dim the zim zoom, that I dim that crack
Mm-hmm.
between those worlds, but I'm still just, I'm a foreign entity and a thing. And I'm not here to say that that's like I'm actually trans-dimensional wayfaring or whatever, but my experience
You
is
never
that,
know.
yeah, exactly. And I can only be anecdotal about it, right? But my experience is that yes, I have, and I've had, and I think I talked to Jerry about this on Cruising with Steak, that I've gotten validation. I've gotten verified to a lot of things that I've seen in these states later. Like
Mm-hmm.
these beasts or ideas or these things that I communicate with or I envision will come to me in an old archaic, book that I'm dicking around with or whatever, and just slap me in the face, that, oh, so this existed before I even knew about it. You know what I mean?
Yes. Well, I mean, think about like the Hungarian singers, the women singers that are the women monks, right?
Mhm.
That amazing, they get together and it's like chants, and it's, it's kind of I guess maybe religious slanted, but they harmonize, and just listening to them puts the listener into a state of trance. And I think a lot, what are those other monks, the Gregorian monks and all
Right.
that kind of old
Singing.
school, yeah, all that old school stuff that where they're manipulating vocal and vibration and sound, and then you start pairing that with things that happen in the dream experience. So like say that heavy vibrational state when you're about ready to leave your body, that can lead to or be part of paralysis, but it can also be where you're shedding, you're getting ready to jump out too. And this is a high vibrational trancy state, and I can't help but connect these dots.
Right.
And like I said, it's been happening a very long time with people. I suspect it's been happening probably since, you know before humans were human.
Yeah.
When you just vocalizing, because you see it in the animal kingdom too, with certain animals, they hum and all this. It's interesting. So this said, back into the modern dreamscape here, where does so you're a practitioner of certain magical ways.
Sure. Yeah. I wouldn't classify them as traditions or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think anyone that's paid attention to you knows all that. But for
Right.
those that don't, you're a free agent.
I'm a
And
free agent. Yeah.
you are a free thinker and definitely not herd mentality. And so, however, you're one who gives reverence to magical states and
tradition.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and so and then you've created your own ways. So how do those ways inform all of this that taps into the ethers, into the dream realm, into the other space.
Well, like I was saying earlier, there's a lot of how would I say it? Future validation or future perspective.
Precognition validation.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe. Yeah, that's a better word for it. Precognitive.
Retrocausal.
There you go. Retrocausal. That's the word. Perfect. Yeah, there's a lot of that when it comes to even different traditions that I kind of come to, or see or I don't want to say experiment because there's more reverence than that. I trust and believe in the mythology of, well, most things, if that makes sense. And I think a lot of the times I will never consider myself to be the the progenitor of certain ideas. To me, it's always like, okay, I'm pulling, even if it's not directly influenced, I'm sure I'll stumble onto it at some point. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't remember who it was. I mean, it could be a crazy mistake. It seems more like something I'd say in there, but I find that we naturally, if we allow ourselves to be natural and just be, we find these states. It's like, I mean, it's like masturbation. You just discovered an accident, you know? And it's like, oh, what was that? I want more of that. And
Hey, thought to manifestation.
right. And so then you figure out how you did it, doing it, or however, whatever, whatever. If you're Catholic, you're guilty, and but anyways, it's the same with with meditation and stillness and all that. Although it can be, life-changing events, big ones, get people into more of a sense of acute nowness, which is lucidity.
Right.
And that's another vehicle to get focused, to get now, to get lucid.
Yeah.
And but there's a praxis here, and I'm wondering, have you been able to tap into or tie into the two states, though? So more specifically, while you've been dreaming, have you been able to meet up with others or hone into, say, a deja vu, precognitive state, or something that, and you've kind of given us a little bit of that, but I'm looking
Right.
for specifics.
So I've got a major one. My girlfriend, my partner in crime. She. It's really funny actually how this started. Talk about synchro. I'm trying to figure out how to simplify this equation here, but it was so I was on the outs of a big relationship. It's been like a couple months, and I was like low self-esteem, like fucking old bride in a big cathedral with no one there kind of thing.
Mrs. Habersham.
like an old ghost just wishing and washing.
Great expectation.
Exactly. And I had this. I had learned about this get together with some ex coworkers, and I, it was one of those like I'm gonna force myself social because like, I'm not dead yet. Stop acting. But it wasn't, and that wasn't because of the past relationship. I was just very alone. You know what I mean? And so I texted my friend. It sounds so modern when I say that, but yes, I texted my friend that I was, and he was an ex coworker at the of this place, which shall not be named. Um, and I told him, hey, I'm really thinking about going to uh this gathering. What do you think? Like, why the fuck would you do that? And I was like, honestly, because I had a dream last night that Mary was single, and we both laughed, and it was funny. And I go to this Halloween party gathering, this old place, and she shows up right. I'm about to leave, and all hell breaks loose.
So she was indeed single.
Yes.
Hello. Yeah. Oh, and so that leads into where you
Well,
were
no,
now.
I mean, like, you know, it was more about like, hey, I want to know what Mary's up.
And then you
Yeah,
bump
and
into
that
her,
was
and now here you are.
yeah. Now here we are. Yeah,
That's amazing. I love
yeah,
that. Is a great example, and that's the kind of stuff I live for, seriously. And
yeah.
it's not that I'm not that I'm a romantic, although there's in me still.
I think you are. I think you're essentially, you know,
There's a thread
essentially
left.
romantic. Yeah, I think it's good to be.
Yeah, no, I've never lost it. I love love, and it's just funny. It's it is a thing, the whole love thing. But
yeah,
this is a perfect example of how these things line up. And did so in the interaction with Mary, did you find out what the line of events that led her to be there? And I mean, you guys just barely crossed paths too. You were leaving and she was coming.
yeah. Just barely. She wasn't gonna come, but you know, just got a wild hair and showed up. And I literally spent, I don't know, 20 minutes with her talking about uh, paranormal stuff, just nerding out about, you know, paranormal things. And we exchanged numbers because I only knew her in passing before. And we exchanged numbers. And I was watching Halloween at the Clinton Street Theater the next day. I think it was like the night
Is that
before.
across from Dots?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I love it over there. I
Yeah.
love
So
Dots.
I was watching John
Shout out.
Carpenter's Halloween, and I got a text from her when I was in the lobby, and it was like, "Hey, I got some more questions to ask about paranormal stuff. You know, like about old Portland, about old haunted Portland." Like, yeah, let's do it. What are you doing for Halloween? Well, whatever you're doing, that's what I'm doing for Halloween. You know, and then it just
Ooh, this is sexy.
yeah. And then we spent Halloween night like dipping around Lone Fir Cemetery, and yeah, it's just super magical. But I had like, you know, there was something inherent in me that even a joke kind of uh how do I say that uh manifest, you know what I mean, a joke about, you know, hey, maybe she's there, like
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, but
turned
just because
into
you
the
only
future.
just because you were, you know, said it as a joke, that was not your intention.
Right, exactly. But it was one of those like amazing uh instances when, you know, you're so flighty when there's like an ultimate truth behind what you say, so you say it, you know, and like it doesn't do anything to the intention. The intention's coming out, you know.
The Jerry, that means.
Yeah.
So yes, and you two look so great together. There's such a good energy with you that it all feels right looking in on it, at least.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we've got a big, awesome future. Like, we're about to embark on this amazing
Journey.
yeah, yeah, and I couldn't be happier. Barring any other unforeseen circumstances that keep us from leaving Portland.
Yeah, I know Portland is not letting y'all go.
Oh, get the hell out of there.
I know. I think, and I was talking to Nish earlier about this. You know,
I had to get out, but I didn't move so far.
7-year itch, right? Like it's 7 years since I moved here this time, and like I really feel, I don't want to be paranoid and say like there's some psychic nefarious work afoot or anything, but I do feel that like, there's yeah, but I do feel like personally there's things that I needed to, I don't know, internal or manifest. I don't know what I mean. I
understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
Your energy is needed there at the moment.
I couldn't just run away.
Yeah. Well, and it's so astrologically, it's interesting, as we were talking about. It's a fourth of a cycle of Saturn, 7 years. So it's also, you've got that kind of pushing that. That's it's a squared energy, and so that's pushing down. So I find that interesting because Saturn oftentimes can make things difficult. And in the moments that are difficult, we tend to either go deeper into sleep or we become more at the surface of awareness, more
Right.
in the now, more lucid. And so for those of us that choose to be aware and rise to the surface, for this analogy we're using at the moment, to see what's going on through these hard crunches, there's more to gain.
Yeah, I was gonna say that there's a part of me that thrives. I used to call myself a Dharma bum. There's a part of me that thrives on chaos. Like, uh, I moved around so much. I had no problem uprooting. I like really find my focus when everything's a miss. Of course, getting older, you're like, I don't fucking need this anymore. But to me, this was like a gentle reminder of like intrinsically who I am. That yeah, of course, there's shit's gonna go awry, but like this is where you find solace. So
Absolutely. And it is, in the end, it's all transient. This whole
right,
experience is transient. And so it it's a good reminder to self, I think, to keep that in that thought, somehow close by.
yeah, it's
That
empowering.
yeah,
You know?
is grounded and solid, and when the things are going the best and you don't want change and all that, you want it to stay that way forever, even in those times, it's really just that this is transient as well. Cue
Right.
the Garfield and Funkle song. Garfield and Funkle. Simon and
Garfield and Funkle.
Oh my god, that's terrible.
Jerry, that's our new band.
Garfield
At
and
work,
Funkle.
on the whiteboard at work, we have a section that's dedicated for band names. Excuse me.
There you go.
I'll just put it on there. What was it called? Funkle and Ross?
Garfield.
Was it Garfield and Funkle?
Yes.
Garfield and Funkle.
Oh my god. Okay, that made myself. Okay, so here we are. This was a good example, and I deja vu. So, do you have them? When you have them, how do you experience them, and are you able to pinpoint?
Yeah, so there's a couple different versions I think I have. There's one I get a lot where I'm very quick retrospectively of it, like it lapses real quick. But there's one that I'm like, as it's happening, I'll voice to whoever's around, like, I remember this. I know what's going on. I know what's gonna happen next. You're gonna pick up that beer. Like there are a lot of those where like I can narrate because I'm like blinking between scenes in reality or something. And not to say that, I'm a such psychic or anything. No, nothing like that. But it's very much that maybe there's just this hyper awareness that I can kind of call the shots. And those like I don't know how to pinpoint. Those just happen.
Yeah, I find them. I just love. I push into them. They're like a drug to me.
Yeah.
I'm always
Yeah.
chasing the next one, and I want more. There have been times recently where I've had so many in a day that I thought the day was going to all of a sudden be. I thought there was going to be some sort of like awake, like
Yeah. You've
honestly.
met singularity.
I know, right, Keats? Like honestly, there were a couple days there, and I just need to back up. I intermittent fast, and I mostly drink day,
Mm-hmm.
and have really a health. And so this is just where I'm at in my life. I have missed eat terrible, and not a teetotaler, but I just am health wise where it's at. So in this process, I am finding more synchronistic stuff happening at a greater rate. And there are times when it feels like there's going to be something. And I don't know that. I mean, sometimes I ponder if that's like a close call with the Great Awakening, which I call death, because it's definitely not the darkening. So, I'm like, oh, is this the day I die? Is it
Right.
this? And so on that note, and where I'm going with that, what are your thoughts on death and how that plays in and ties to the experience of living in life?
I mean, to me, it's like, what's that Hook saying? To die would be a great adventure, or whatever. Like,
Oh, yes.
to me as a kid, I was always obsessed with it. I mean, obsessed is a bad word. I did have an ex-girlfriend once tell me after we met, after a couple of years of not being together, the first question she asked me was, "Are you still obsessed with death?" Which I thought was really funny. 'Cause I never really considered that to be part and parcel to me. But yeah, I've always just it's insane. It's the absolute, right? It's the great equalizer. Nobody fucking knows. Nobody has any fucking clue, like any clue whatsoever. And to me, that's so wonderful that like everyone experiences it, yet no one can truly say, what goes on afterwards. So yeah, it's to die would be a great adventure.
Shortcut to
And
glory.
you know that I love that. Right. Glory. But I do love how it's the equalizer and how in the name of so many organized groups, aka religions, there's so much conviction around what happens. It's just and
It's beautiful. Yeah.
well, it co-opts the experience it co-opts the idea and also the experience that they don't know. People selling it to you don't know.
Right.
And until you really truly go through it, and I mean go through it and not come back, so
Right.
that you can then rule out when your brain is good and dead,
Yeah.
like a day or that this is not a chemical reaction,
I
and
just
you're
think,
there.
yeah, it goes within like the idea of hauntings or paranormal activity. I think we're envisioning it wrong. Like I don't think it's consciousness that is arrested to this plane from you. You know what I mean? I think honestly it could be echoes. They're ethereal echoes or reverberations. But anyway, what I mean to say is that there's no, like, I honestly believe that's the great mystery, right? And I think it's almost like a treasure to everyone with a well-lived life. It's something that you work towards, and it's something that's gifted. Um, this is coming from someone that has had bouts with terrible self-harm stuff that had to kind of accrue these ideas, over a long while. But I honestly believe that. I believe that it's it's a surprise, and it's probably not. Who knows? I don't know. To me, it's just so fucking fascinating, and it's almost intrinsically a pinpoint on why absolutes are bullshit.
Totally. Oh man, I'm. This right here sounds like us on your podcast.
Yeah, yeah,
But it's true. And I think once we allow the experience to open up on its own and to have a personal relationship with it, and our ideas of it, and allow ourselves to grow with the idea of it, and which means your ideas change as you pull in more data and allow yourself change, and the transience of personal evolution through thought,
right.
through experience. It's all mysterious and beautiful.
I think I've been through many deaths. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
yes. In one lifetime, how many
Yeah,
have you lived?
yeah. Maybe every day is a new death, but I think death in itself as a generality is just such an encompassing, uh, brilliant, scary to some, exciting to others. It's like it has no form or reason. Everyone has implanted their own ideas or have tried to corral ideas about it to everyone. And the funny fucking thing is, there's no evidence to support any of it.
I know. Well, and then and then the great religions rise up around it.
What about
Right.
space? I'm kidding.
There you go.
Yeah, it's
I think
ether.
space is actually just dead souls and like a huge mat
Maybe. I
of
heard
a web of dead souls. Like, yeah.
I heard Jake Stratton Kent once say the stars were spirits.
I dig that. He's
Oh my God, I
fucking
love that.
funny. Yeah.
He is good.
I'm intimidated by him. I like him a lot.
That is such a great quote, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was on Rune Soup.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
I'm friends with him on Facebook, and I'm always
We are too.
like, chuckling at his posts. But he's next level. He's a great thinker.
Yeah, I bow down to the open mind. That's where I'm at. So with all this, I'm going to pose a couple classic Nox Mente questions to you, and we've danced around it all night. We've been talking about these anyway. But is it possible that we are dead? Is it possible?
So I think about that all the time. There's something I've been writing for the last 10 years that's about this character, what I put my music under is this character that I've had since I was 14. His name is Dakota Slim. And I've been writing this book or sometimes it's a graphic novel, sometimes it's back to a book. Been with many artists, it's my fucking crucifix, fucking piece of creative work, right? And it's like loosely based on the Tibetan Book of the Dead, but it's all about late 1800s New Mexican territory, and it infuses a lot of stuff. So it really is just about this idea, this pilgrimage of death. And what comes at me every day with it is that I'm not entirely sure I'm alive. Like I honestly, I think sometimes when shit gets rough, I think that one mistake I did, like this is some weird brutal loop, some weird purgatory. Like I think, but that's like the beauty of this reality. It's that it's hell, purgatory, heaven. It's it's whatever. But I truly believe that we've all experienced death. I use that word again. You know.
Yeah, it's when in my whole life, this has been one of those great 7 literary queries, and and informed me, or it's what interested me early on. So, and then I found its way into film and cinema, like the film Siesta, which is in my top 10.
Great movie, yeah.
Amazing film that very few people have seen, and it's just brilliant from every angle. And and I saw it when it came out.
Yeah.
I'm of that age, so and I sat there in the theater after everyone had left, just a gasp. Going, this is because I'd already questioned this. There had been so many dramatic things in my life, and times when I still can't figure out how I made it out alive of many experiences.
Me too. Yeah, absolutely.
And you know what? I think a lot of people have at least one experience where they can go back and question: Did I actually could have died there? That could have been, and I'm in this loop. And Siesta really brings that up. And you can pull up to Siesta, the film, from almost any angle. You can pull up to it from a Catholic, and there's a lot of angles you can pull up to that unfolding of that story of are we dead or not. But then there's this, it's heady, but for me, I feel it in my body, and I'm not sure if it's somehow like we're talking about masturbation earlier, how we just discover it, right? We just discover it. I wonder sometimes if we just discover death, like it's there all along.
I would say rediscover, honestly.
Right. We'll rediscover fits better.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever read The Road to Ishtlan by Castaneda?
I haven't. I read the Teachings of Don Juan.
So he says in that book that death is always behind you, over your left shoulder, waiting.
Sure. Yeah.
It's always there. If you're still enough, you can see it.
Yes. This is why I'm obsessed with, I let all my animals die naturally, and
right.
And I've opted to be around friends and people that have died. My ex-boyfriend worked for hospice. I got to be exposed to that. I put myself
I'm
around
sorry to hear that.
a lot of that. No, he worked for hospice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I've been around lots and lots of, because I'm intrigued by that space that opens up. There is something that feels when death is in the room, and it could be a projection. It could, but the fact that it's a projection when something's passing through, moving on, is still a powerful moment to be in.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think it says, like, I don't know, as ho-hum as, say, the death card in tarot actually meaning change.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think that's what it is. And we were talking about earlier about chaos. And I think those are the little deaths, or, in some cases, big death for us. But I think that major one, it's your point about, the siesta film about, like not knowing if you survived or whatever. I think that's all like retrospective, right? We won't know until we know. If that makes sense.
And then it's the fact that the big question, when we know, is that when this is just fodder. When we know, is it the fact that we have been all along, that there really is no death, that
right,
that it's like in the video game again, you just up another level.
yeah. I mean, I'm not as narcissistic as many believe. I think to think that my consciousness or this identity lives on past. I think that's the beauty of this somatic shared reality, as I think we are gifted, or we're raised in, nurtured, nature, whatever. These identities we have now interacting with each other are one-off. That's it. Maybe there's something inherent in us, or that carries a piece of that moves forward. But I truly believe that me as Travis Keats Ross is it for now. You know what I mean?
Well, I was thinking about this today. I came in, as I often do when I'm on, I think I have just great. And
no, yeah, it's for the best thing can happen.
Samadhi happens on the toilet. And so, oh man, it's funny. It's so funny, it knocked me off my thread. Damn it. Oh man.
When you're on the toilet.
No, I know, but that's standard. But every 15 minutes when I gotta pee. Oh, let's see.
Talking about like combustible identity, that like this identity we have now.
So exactly. I was thinking about the idea of identity today. And I came in, and anyone that listens to me knows this. I came in knowing, I was under 6 months when I had my first memory. And that's definitive with my mother, because we moved when I was 6 months. So it put me in this particular room in that cradle, and the stuff I described to her. So we don't know when along that scale of 6 months, but 6 months earlier. And I came in going, like, it was like sleep paralysis. I couldn't move my body, and I was I felt like me inside the shell that and the niche like identity that according to the shell. But
Sure.
it was me in a bigger sense, a capital B. So I didn't have like an identity. I don't know where I came from. I just know I woke up in this shell as a baby. As I woke up in a baby's body. And when I figured out, I thought it was sleep paralysis somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I had a sense of identity, but this is the first thing out today. It wasn't an identity with Nish. It was just me, and not in an ego sense, not in a I've got this color hair, I've got this, I own this and I've done that.
Right. The
And
infallible you.
right. And so I ponder that idea with identity a lot, because as we move through, we have everyone attaches themselves to their trauma, to their stories. And when I was thinking back to that memory, and memory is very fallible, as we know. In fact, it's not even reliable at all. Especially
Inadmissible.
Neuroscientists will tell you this like straight up. And but that that was saying, oh man, what am I can't move, I'm stuck, and then realizing I'm in a body. When I try to hone in on that moment, I can't get images of what I thought I was, where. So I'm waking up. What did I think I was going to wake up as? You know what I'm saying? Where did I think I was? Where did I think I was going to wake up? Who did I think I was or am? And so that has me on like a little mind bender right now.
Right. That's like you're like rebuilding yourself in real time.
But I'm still that little baby. Like, oh,
It's more of a reboot.
There you go. Same character. Yeah.
Respawning. There you go.
It's almost like, yeah, but they don't know they're that character yet. Just yet,
Learn your dharma.
Well, yeah, had I known, getting ready for the hard road, Betty Davis said.
Right. Yeah. Whatever happened to Baby Jane all day, every day.
Oh my God. Just, on her gravesite, it says she has her quote in Betty Davis always did it the hard way. I just love that.
She's the best. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. So, but it's just the idea of we come in kind of fresh and wiped, even if we have a memory of or an idea of self that's without all the baggage, and then we just start accumulating. It's like hoarding.
Sure.
It's like almost like surface level hoarding of identity towards things. This is my couch, isn't it fantastic? Victorian, this maker, look at the patina. Those are stories for me. And or I know this person, I've done this and that, and all this junk that gets that becomes our patina in a bad way, because it's encrusting us spiritually. Right. In some way, it's encrusting us spiritually. And ultimately, though, that egg that we create, the hard shell that we create around this whole idea of identity and self, becomes that which we hatch out of.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking, you got my brain jogging to circle back earlier when you made a comment about I've got, a lot of YouTube channels, and that just made me remember that like I've got a lot of different characters or beings or like projects I put under different things, and I think they're like small experiments in death and rebirth. If that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, so like I never think of making an album without some overarching concept, but also like coming at it in a kind of folkloric way or something. And that would, me, that's like these little, that's the microcosm, right, of experiencing death and hardship, or channeling through that as the macro kind of comes through. I don't know, it just got me into this weird hyperspace of what it means to be so drawn to creating different visage. You can punch me in the face for saying that word, but yeah.
Well, there's a great. Oh no, I actually love that word.
Mhm.
I personally love it. But so if we tie this back into the idea of dreaming and where we are, everything we've been kind of contemplating about, how significant is the process of dreaming, in this experience of the life that we're experiencing?
It's a
Does
third
it
of it, you know? It's
do you
extremely
see it as
important.
so it's important to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I get caught up just like anybody else and, forget to meditate on things, but I've always been a heavy dreamer. It's always been, my morning discussion to whoever will hear me, as absurd as some of them might be. It's absolutely important. I mean, to me as like a pragmatic person, it, to me it's like where the subconscious lives. As I'm lying there dead, I am somewhere else and doing things, so I damn well better listen.
Hmm. Do you, so in the parsing out of your daily dreams, and it's great. I'm one of those people that likes to get up and talk about my dreams too. I always have. Thankfully, the people around me in my life growing up really promoted that.
Yeah.
Do you wake up with it? So if you have a dream and you've woken up, you've risen, right? You have risen in a mood. So a dream has been powerful. It's got a heavy emotional context to it or feeling. How does that inform the rest of your day?
Oh, intensely. Intensely. I'll have one linger on me to the next day. Sometimes it'll reoccur, then my weekend's blown. Like I it absolutely affects every fiber of my waking life if it's a very uh heavy, that's too light of a word, heavy dream,
And so so that also gets into the idea that you do have uh, a component of feeling within your dream. Some people don't. It's like almost detached.
Yeah, I've noticed that. It's like watching a movie for some folks.
Right.
Yeah, I guess that's where the parallel of video games makes more sense to me, even though I'm a big movie fan. But at the same time, why I love movies is that in part my identity as I'm watching it, the suspension of disbelief or whatever with it. But yeah, I don't understand that. I've never had a dream where I wasn't the one battling through the narrows.
That's how my dreams are.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never had that. I've always been, maybe it's like selfish or conceited of my subconscious to think that I need to be a part of it all.
It could be something completely different too.
Right.
Could be,
I poke fun.
I have bizarre dreams about doing like missions.
Right, but it's you doing the mission, right?
I'm in it, but it's like watching a movie of me.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Jerry,
Yeah.
do you think it's the basis programming?
I don't know. I've always had them, and I don't know what it is. Could just be my imagination.
Oh shit, Jerry's a Manchurian candidate.
No,
Wait,
I wouldn't say that.
It's possible.
I have ideas
Doing
which
missions
are
like,
I have ideas which are unconventional, I would say, but they're just dreams.
Yeah, totally.
But I've never had a lucid dream or anything like that.
Yeah, they're intense. There's a lot of times I wish that my dreams weren't. And I do have a lot of kind of, I'm meandering or I'm, on a roller coaster underwater, but it means nothing. It's, you know what I mean? Like it's not, I do have a lot of dreams where it's just more about I'm dicking around in my alter life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I fell asleep and I caught myself, shooting the shit with my dream friends kind of thing.
I forget who it was that we had on, but or it might have been us that we came up with it. Either way, the idea that you're living parallel lives right now.
Yeah.
And the dream space is a nexus to all of them. So maybe when you're dreaming, you are filling in another life somewhere else.
Yeah, I think, and I've worked with that idea, and this idea that there's like this avatar of you that, battles against all of the shit in your subconscious, and when you're asleep, you get the window to that. And then when you're awake, he's still battling in the background, and you kind of get caught up as you guys switch around.
It could be also like some kind of karma resolution.
I like that idea a lot. I need to look into that more, but I heard that recently. I forget from who. That was, there's this function, like your subconscious as an entity that is working through shit
Mhm.
while you're sleeping. Like literally, that's why I use the term battling,
Right. And in a way, it turns out to be similar to an alchemical process. You're distilling down the best parts of you through experiencing those. Or
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if you can hone that alchemist. If I wonder if like you can on this visceral plane, we act so much about, study and practice. And I wonder if there's a way for your, your
to choose
yeah,
your path.
exactly. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe,
There's that scene in
lucidity is going to be the first step for sure.
yeah. It's really helped me with my back, I'll tell you that much.
What's one of the things where people that are having a bad experience in their current reality, like people in prison and just bad experiences, it's been that find escape through dreaming, the
Right.
portal of dreaming, and in that they find, they discover how to get lucid, and we naturally will do it, like we've been discussing, if we allow ourselves the space to do it, and then get OBE. And of course, I just think that's a old talk for the highest state of lucidity, when you're just out of body completely. I think that's like you're fully awake.
I mean, yeah, that's where I'm at with like all of this terminology, all of this language, all of this lexicon, whether here or there. It's like we're all talking about the same fucking thing.
I know it is so annoying. There was a point in my life when I was so deep into psychological jargon that I couldn't speak to anyone unless it was anyone in that field, and I ended up alienating everyone, and it did no service. It was terrible, and I see how it happened, because I got I was young and I got co-opted into all that, and
Right.
it was great. It was fantastic. But I'm also trying to bring that forward here and in my daily life anyway, into these conversations, because these are universal experiences, and in the end, we're all having them. And so to that elitist aspect that's making things more complicated, and this is where like legal jargon gets in, all of the fuckery that we see in language is part of the trap. And so back to the dreaming, we all do it, we all have access to it, so let's just talk on a level we can that everyone it's inclusive, we can all relate to. And so parsing out these ideas of, oh well, that's OBE and then that's lucid, and let's just try and find a common ground here. And ironically, it was Gordon White who said that his idea of it's a sliding scale, it's all lucidity, it's the scale of it, and I've always loved it. I've been holding on to that.
Yeah, and I agree with that wholeheartedly.
So yeah,
I mean, and just like anything, it's a gradient. And
it's a gradient, but I think we should try and this is part of what's breaking down in society is we're not understanding each other.
Right.
We're like, the language is getting thicker. It's like a thicker fog of language. And I'm listening to people, I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And I'm sure people look at me and think that because we're finding ourselves in these weird band camps. We're
That's so funny you said that word, because I was gonna, if you would mind, talk about it in artistic term, in a way, because I feel that when, especially like say you or I, when we deal with metaphysical things and incorporating it into art or creating art or enhancing art or inspiring art, that it's easy to get lost in kind of the tundra of uh, psychedelic, quote unquote, or abstract
yes,
idea. But I
yeah,
feel like with your music and mine too, like the way that we discern the language, the way that we convey those ideas is through almost, I don't want to say a prototypical song structure, but there is melody, there is beat, there's rhyme, there is, you know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's a lot of why uh, art is truly just kind of the most uh, intentional idea to kind of get around all that linguistic stuff is, through those avenues of conventional, I'd hate to say the term, but you know what I mean, like song
Yes,
structures, right?
yes. Well, look at how many people, it's like this good and the bad with it. How many people were told that you're gifted towards being an artist or you're not, right? And I grew up with that, like that you were gifted to be an artist or not. And I am the first person to say we definitely all need to get creative.
Yes.
Yes. Some people do have a leaning, in certain directions that gives them an edge as far as, man, that person can just naturally paint realistic if that's what you're into. Or,
Right.
look at that pitch perfect always, just naturally. They didn't take a voice lesson. But if we strip ourselves of that and just allow yourself to get funky with yourself, right? Just get creative and then work from there. It's just accepting yourself as you are. And this is completely relevant to this conversation because it's the idea of yes, you all dream. We're all dreaming. We may not remember it, we're all dreaming. Then from there, yes, we all get Jerry gets he's not remember. And then from there, we just keep ascending into a deeper layer of understanding. And as we come into this deeper layer of understanding ourselves and then getting onto a common ground of language, we might get somewhere.
Right. Yeah. I think, to me, that's, I hate to like use the term, but to me that's what pragmagic means. It's literally creation. It's literally art. That to me is the most sincerest form of affecting true will, or affecting the material world with your true will, or whatever kind of pompous idea of magic there is, because like when it comes down to it, uh, if we all just expressed ourselves more, I think we'd be in better hands.
And looking back at this from the future, the apparent future, will this be any different? Will this be a memory? Will it be a memory of a dream? Will this be a dream we had? We're all having people in the chat, people listening. What will this be in retrospect?
Well, I can tell you, I can paint a picture for you right now. What this will be for me. They're like, because memories to me are like shards, right, of glass that kind of poke at you every now and again, like jump cuts, to use film terms, between like, these passing ideas. And to me, it's sitting on a bed right now with a fucking busted up back, a microphone in my hand, my dog right next to me, and this beautiful lamp in the corner of this naked room. And I couldn't ask for a better, like, uh, artistic display of what this conversation is.
I love that. You
Empty
painted
and
that so.
broken. What?
I didn't see that at all.
Okay.
Jerry, see, there is the greatest example. Jerry says empty and broken.
I was being
Dark beauty.
sarcastic.
That is the beauty of no, Jerry, but it illustrates everything, our perspective, and is what David likes, the perception. And so this is also like when you're dreaming, you encounter others in the that are clearly not you. How does that play out for you? Are you aware that there are others there that are pushing, driving their own vehicles?
Oh, that's a good point. To be quite honest, I think I just assume that that's the case in all my dreams because the people or the entities I interact with in dreaming, like in just straight dreaming, are very um, amalgamistic, or you know what I mean, of like different ideas of people. They're not necessarily this is Bob and that's you know that's Jerry. It's like this is kind of a Bob Jerry situation I've got, and it's this new kind of form for a person. So I just automatically assume that uh it's something else wearing masks. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's like this. Like it's one of those things where I have been why I used that example earlier about looking back at this. It's one of my current exercises I'm doing in trying to get the lucidity of the moment. And so by saying looking back and placing myself somehow in the future, but through now, so I'm not actually dreaming forward and escaping whatever now is. I am placing myself almost in an omniscient stance where I'm looking above at the scene and at my role in the scene to kind of get a geography and a geographical setting, also like a grid, really, of where I could be. And then, of course, this plays into the whole magical thing too. But when things like your experience with meeting Mary, that was very magical on all counts, synchronistic universe working, cooking with gas, that you look back, even your telling of that story, is everything is just stories around us, makes that particular experience stand out. And so, and then and the thing about that story and that example is how misty it is, because dream quality that's really there. And then there's the reality aspect of it that was really there. And now it's all in the past, which is in the realm of the ethers and dream and memory and not tangible any longer.
Sure.
But it's shiny and it's beautiful and it's something that sticks out from the muck of everything else. And so the omniscient view again, this is a point in time and it sounds like a checkpoint in time. And so I wonder through the whole like dream yoga thing where you start placing the imagery onto stuff and Jung, what's you call active imagination, where we start overlaying the images onto random, maybe not even random, but mundane things, like a walk in the park, and you start overlaying a dream here and overlaying a dream there. I started to overlay memories and dreams onto things because what's the difference? And I'm starting to see a weird awakening within my, I hate to use this word, psychic abilities, but all of a sudden I'm getting a lot of feedback. I'm saying stuff that some people are like today talking to Suzanne. I literally said, this happens a lot for me, but I literally said something she was just thinking is going to type out. And that's just a stupid experience, but it's because I think I'm attributing this because I'm not separating dream and reality anymore. I'm still functioning, and I still
Right.
realize if I fall off a cliff, no, I'm going to get hurt. But I'm wondering if we start applying these principles.
I think it's the cosmic rays.
Is it, Jerry, that are coming at us?
I think so.
The Fantastic Three.
Well, it doesn't really matter what I think because it's what I believe to be happening.
I mean, yeah, that's totally valid.
Because I'm experiencing it as well.
Yeah,
Right.
a lot of us are. See, this is the thing, that we're collectively, a lot of coming. But I'm wondering, coming to what, from where?
So it reminds me of this. Here's another kind of analogy, an analog analogy, even of film, right? So, like in a projector, when you get caught between two scenes and they're blinking right on top of each other, and it's like this most insane, like unrealistic depiction, and it only lasts for so long until the bulb burns the film. And that kind of reminds me of that. It's like having this awareness for only such a short time before it just burns through.
That's a good image, and it's definitely one I can relate to immediately. I mean, I got, like being in theaters, old school theaters, when that did happen.
Yeah, and it's always the coolest, like, superimposed flicker.
I know.
Caught, and that's how I see. That's how I literally think of these trance states, or whatever. Not so much dreams, but more of the waking ones, or the the quote unquote trans dimensional wayfaring, or whatever. But with that, guys, I love you. I have got to go.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's been 2 hours.
Almost.
You guys are incredible. I really appreciate you.
Oh, thanks so much for coming on the pinch. Do you want to plug anything? Talk about your group?
Sure. So
I've got links for everything already in the description.
Awesome. I just want to say I'm really, really excited for the next Nox Mente with Eric Millar, who did the Disruption Generator. He's a great friend. You guys are gonna fucking love him. I talk to him every day about a lot of this stuff, and so I'm really happy to witness that union happen. Not to pump it up too much.
It's 2-way. It's in 3 weeks.
Oh yeah.
We're super excited.
Yeah. But I do a podcast. It's kind of just it's my education. Called Pragmagick. Pragmagick.com. I run a art collective called We the Hallowed at wethehallowed.org, and I put out music under Dakota Slim, and that's dakotaslim.net. And I think I took all of the dots there.
Cool.
.org, .net, .com.
I don't have.
Thank you for getting weird with us, Keats.
Yeah, it was awesome.
You guys. It was absolute pleasure, and I honestly, it really made my night. I really appreciated that.
Well, we hope you get better soon.
Thank you, and I'll see
Big
you
love.
from Denver.
Yes.
Sunday's weed.
Safe journey to you and Mary.
All right, guys.
All right, dude, take
have
care.
safe trans-dimensional wayfaring.
All right, thank you. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Next week, we have Rachel Pollack, author Rachel Pollack, which I know Nish is all very excited about.
Super excited about it. Changed my life. Sarah.
All right. So, everyone, have a good night. We'll see you next week.